Okay. So today we discuss the three properties, so to say, of any equilibrium. When we talk about any equilibrium, these are the three things: existence, uniqueness, and stability. And in that order, we are always concerned about. So first comes the question of whether the equilibrium exists or not, then whether it is unique. Because if it is unique, then we have a good situation. It's not that if we have two or three equilibria, we really have a bad situation or something, but just that in case we have more than one, we have to examine each of them, and we have to examine each of them in terms of their stability. So that we'll discuss when we'll discuss stability. Okay. So first, existence. A competitive, a competitive market equilibrium. A competitive market equilibrium will exist if there is one or more one or more non-negative prices, non-negative prices. See, we are writing non-negative. That means if the price is zero, then we do not have any problem. Although probably we would not like such a situation because it will talk about a very specific kind of a scenario. But anyways, having price zero is not really a problem of the subject. Okay, so non-negative prices at which demand and supply demand and supply are equal and non-negative. So by which we mean we need both price and quantities to be non-negative. So basically, in terms of the diagrams we have drawn, so in terms of diagrams, equilibrium will exist. And again, I will say that this is my own abbreviation. Do not write like this in the answer papers. Okay. So equilibrium will exist if demand and supply curves, if demand and supply curves have at least one point in common. So see that we are writing at least. That means we are okay if there are more than one. It's just that having only one is a good situation because we have less work to do. Okay, so at least one point in common in the non-negative quadrant. In the non-negative quadrant. Okay. Now we'll look at three diagrams. Okay, three diagrams, and we'll see how the conditions of existence come by. So three situations in which okay, right, like the demand and supply curve, the demand and supply curve have no intersection point. And obviously by this we mean intersection point in the non-negative quadrant. As we pointed out that we are not interested in other quadrants. So have no intersection point. Okay. So let's look at the first one. This is, we can say this is our case 1. So here you have Q and here you have P. So demand curve is downward sloping and supply curve is upward sloping. Look at that. That we have drawn a usual demand supply diagram in the sense that in the market equilibrium, talking about single market, we said that laws of demand tells it to be downward sloping and law of supply tells it to be upward sloping. So when we are looking for no intersection point, we are drawing usual demand supply diagram, not something which does not fall into lines. For example, a positively sloped demand curve or a negatively sloped supply curve. Of those things, we are currently not talking about. We have taken usual shapes and then we are saying that there is no intersection point. Okay, so what is happening here? All right, so here what we have is supply exceeds demand. Supply exceeds demand at every non-negative price. At every non-negative price. Okay, now if you want to depict this situation better than writing that supply excess demand at every non-negative price, what kind of, if we say that this is a scenario, this is a scenario which can occur in economics, how can we depict it? Or if someone asks what the kind of equilibrium that is we are looking at here, then what will we say? So the definition of equilibrium can be extended in the following way. In the following way. So here what do you have? So let us define something called a free good. So a free good has a price of 0 and is characterized by excess of supply over demand. That is S of 0 is greater than D of 0 at P equal to 0. Okay. So if this kind of a scenario appears, we'll say that we are looking at the demand supply scenario of a free good where the excess supply over demand, this scenario is true for all levels of prices, all levels of non-negative prices. Okay. So let's go back, let's go to the next scenario. So 2, and one of the easy example probably of this is air. Okay. Now, obviously, this is also the reason that we have pollution, but that we'll discuss later, that how this kind of a scenario can lead to over exploitation and, for that matter, air pollution, and how to solve it, if at all it can be solved. Okay. So let's look at another scenario. Q0 P, and here this is the demand curve downward sloping, and this is the supply curve upward rising. So what do we have here? Here you have a scenario where the demand price, note that we are now talking about price and not quantity. Okay. Earlier in the first scenario, we talked about quantity. And because existence problem can occur in both the in terms of both the price and the quantity, while discussing stability also, we will have two conditions, two types of stability conditions. One of them will talk about quantity, and one of them will talk about the price. Okay. So the demand price is less than the supply price at each non-negative output, at each non-negative output. Okay. So this basically means the WTP, which is willingness to pay. So the willingness to pay of consumers is inadequate to compensate, and we are writing compensate because obviously the producer has earned costs of production, right? So is inadequate to compensate the producers. Okay. So how we are going to incorporate this one, much like we did it for the last one, that is, we defined something called a free good and incorporated that situation as a type of as a kind of equilibrium that we can have. So here also we can do the same thing, but in a slightly different way. So here we'll say that an equilibrium exists. So an equilibrium exists with zero output with zero output or quantity, whatever you prefer. Okay, so zero output if supply price exceeds demand price, if supply price exceeds demand price for all non-negative outputs. Okay, and obviously here the example will be a little bit awkward in the sense that it is never basically produced. So for example, gold tiffin box. So the point of taking this example is that it is not impossible to produce gold tiffin box. One can produce that, but the point is that the price at which the supplier will be ready to sell it is not the price that the consumer will be willing to pay. Okay, so here we are not saying that demand kind of with time has decreased to zero. That's not the point. Something like that happened with a car, Tata Nano, that the demand it reduced to zero in the last year, I think. Here we are saying that we don't see the product, although one can produce it, because the price, the price that someone want to pay is not the price at which the supplier will be ready to produce it or sell it. Okay. So this is the second scenario. And there is a third scenario where we cannot really interpret in this sense, but that has modeling problems. So something that we have kind of bypassed when we covered the market model in mathematical economics. The one or two of the first parameter restrictions, they basically bypassed the third scenario. Okay, but obviously that scenario can also occur. And these are the scenarios where obviously equilibrium does not exist, but that case itself can be interpreted in a very in the way of economics actually. Okay. All right. So let's look at the third situation. So 0, Q, and P. So you have supply here, and you have demand here. Okay. Now, obviously, you can say that, okay, this is also, I am looking at the first scenario, because you see that at P equal to 0, the supply is more than the demand. But that's not really true. Okay. Because here what is happening? Here it is not the first one that we studied. It is just the opposite of the first one. So in the first one, we had demand curve here and supply curve here. And now in case 3, we have just the opposite. So we have supply curve first and then demand curve first. So second, so here you have a price where somebody at zero price, someone is ready to supply some amount. And although the demand is higher than that, we do not have an intersection point. Okay, now that's when will that happen? Because that doesn't really make sense. Okay, so this is why we'll say that this is the result of poor modeling, or as we can say, parameter specification. Parameter specification, that we also can say. Although functional specification can also result in this scenario. anyways, it means the same thing. But let's just once again understand what I'm saying. I'm saying that in the first case, we saw that the price at zero price, even at zero price, the demand is inadequate to go till the uh, supply. Okay, so that's one. But here we have is the demand is higher than the supply, that than the amount that the producers are ready to supply, and yet we are saying that there is no intersection point in the non-negative quadrant, and we are saying that this is a result of poor modeling. Okay, so here what is happening is, here demand, so demand exceeds supply, demand exceeds supply for every price, for every price, and there is there is no meaningful, and there is no meaningful interpretation. There is no meaningful interpretation. Okay, because in the first scenario you have got more than what you want, so the price is zero, so that's fine. Here you have got less than what you want, so we should have said, we should have had a price, right? But because demand exceeds supply, at least the amount of supply which matches the demand, that must have been supplied. But yet we are looking at this and we see that that is not the case. So that will only happen when the modeling is very poor, and it is because of this we do not have any meaningful interpretation. But for the last two diagrams, we saw that the first one is for free good, and the second one, which is the zero production case, there we saw that the price that the consumer is ready to pay is not enough for the producer, and because of that we do not at all see the produce in the market. Okay. Okay, so now we will talk about uniqueness, and we have very little to talk about because, as I said, that the rigorous discussion of uniqueness is beyond our scope. It involves some theorems of real analysis, which we cannot really study now. Okay, but anyways, so uniqueness. So why are you studying this? Because it is possible. It is possible. So, yeah, that more than one, it is possible that more than one equilibrium, more than one equilibrium exists. Okay, that is, the demand, and supply are equal. Demand and supply are equal at more than one, non-negative, more than one non-negative prices and quantities. Okay, so let us look at a diagram again. So here you have the usual demand curve, which goes like this, and then we have a slightly unusual supply curve. Okay, and we have two intersection points. Let's say this one is A, and this one is B. So obviously we have two equilibrium points. Okay. So okay, I can write like this. So points A and B are B are both equilibria. Are both equilibria. So why do we have that? Because, and now here we'll have the second part of law of demand, which imposes the condition of 1 to 1. Okay. So quantity is a single valued quantity is a single valued, okay, let's put a hyphen, single valued function. Quantity is a single valued function of price, but price is not a single valued price is not a single valued function of quantity. Okay. And this scenario is this we do have this actually. We have this in um labor supply and labor demand, something that will study later. Labor supply and labor demand. So in short, we are actually trying to depict the labor supply labor demand scenario in this diagram. So in labor supply also, the labor supply curve is basically backward bending. So beyond a certain wage, it kind of goes back, yeah, goes back on itself. Whereas labor demand is downward sloping. So in labor market, we do have this situation. We are having both as equilibria, and later we'll discuss all the points related to it, because labor means their wages, wages mean income, and income leads to the most famous weapon of government revenue, that is income tax. But anyways, here we are not interested in all of that. Here we are interested in the fact that if we have a supply curve like this, which we have in the labor market, we have more than one equilibria, and that's perfectly okay. That's normal. Okay. So, but anyways, one point of concern is that when we have equilibria rather than equilibrium, the natural question that comes in our mind is that which of this or which among those will stay, in that sense that if a disturbance occurs, okay, if the price that we start with is not in the equilibrium, then what will happen in each of those two cases? And that basically leads us to the idea of stability. Now, although stability is a huge literature, mostly because we have two kinds of stability. One is called static stability and the other is called dynamic stability. For the time being here, we are primarily interested in static stability. But before we go into that, let's write something, a word or two about stability itself. So what do we mean by an equilibrium is stable? Okay. And we are going to look at it in terms of our simple model of demand and supply. So equilibrium price and quantity are determined by the equality of demand and supply. So this much we know. Now, equilibrium is characterized equilibrium is characterized by the fact that no participant no participant in the market no participant in the market has an incentive, basically reason, so has an incentive to modify or deviate from her current behavior. Current behavior. Now, this is a characterization of an equilibrium. So it starts from here. Okay. So yeah, yeah. So no participant in the market has an incentive to deviate, to modify or deviate from her current behavior. So this, sorry, yeah. So this is a very interesting way of putting what an equilibrium is, and this idea often helps us. Basically, this idea is the most helpful idea actually to check whether we are looking at an equilibrium or not. Okay, and this idea is not that this idea of not deviating from the current scenario. It is applied only for demand and supply. It has huge application. Even much later in game theory also, we will talk about when we will talk about Nash equilibrium, we'll say the same thing, that it's an equilibrium in the sense that no one has an incentive to deviate or behave otherwise. So in demand supply, it means that if we have a price of, let's say, 10 at the equilibrium price and the quantity of, let's say, 20, then you are saying that the supplier has no incentive to sell more than 20 or less than 20 at the price 10, or the consumer has no incentive to pay or buy more than 20 at rupees 10. And the behavior can be interpreted in terms of price also, in the sense that if you ask the supplier to sell 20 units, the supplier is not going to charge anything lower than 10, and there is no gain by charging more than 10. And for the consumer also, if the consumer's demand is 20, then the consumer's willingness to pay for that 20 units will be 10 and not more than 10. Okay, and for less than 10, the consumer will not be able to get that 20 units. So this is the idea of this is the way we are describing the equilibrium, when you are saying that there is no one who wants to deviate. Okay, so this is the interpretation in terms of demand and supply. For other models, we'll have interpretation in those terms, but this idea of this, that this is the behavior you must look for in an equilibrium, it's very strong, and it is probably the most applicable idea of equilibrium in our subject. Okay. Okay. But we have a problem, and the problem is that, however, sheer existence does not guarantee that the equilibrium will be established, and sometimes you also write attained, they mean the same thing. So the equilibrium will be established if the market, if the market is not in equilibrium. So that's the question we are asking, discussing stability. Okay. Also, the initial price that is assumed, that is assumed may not be the equilibrium price. Okay. May not be the equilibrium price. And there is one more scenario where the idea of stability becomes important, is that again, changes in consumers' preferences. So changes in consumers' preferences may shift the curve, or may shift the demand curve, and innovations may similarly shift the supply curve, may shift the supply curve to define a new equilibrium. Right. So if we shift the demand and supply one by one or both together, and all of it will define a new equilibrium. Now the point is that because there is a new equilibrium, there is no guarantee that it will be attained. Okay. So these are the reasons that we end up discussing stability at large. Okay. So first we can have an equilibrium that is not stable. Second, we can have, a study where the initial price is not really the equilibrium price, which we all the time actually we kind of assume away. And third, which is much more dangerous, is that maybe we start with an equilibrium, but shifting the demand and supply can reach to another equilibrium which is not attainable. Okay, so that's a very interesting scenario actually. So all of this is just to discuss stability. Okay. So before defining stability, we need to kind of define what a disequilibrium scenario is. So it's very simple. Disequilibrium, a disequilibrium or disturbance denotes a situation in which the actual price is different from the equilibrium price. And this gives us the definition of stability. Okay. So, definition of stable equilibrium. So, an equilibrium is stable. An equilibrium is stable if a disturbance results in a return to equilibrium. So an equilibrium is stable if a disturbance results in a return to equilibrium. That means we start with a disequilibrium price. For a stable equilibrium will return automatically. That is, the market mechanism will lead to the equilibrium price. Or if we start from equilibrium price and inject some disturbances in the model in terms of supply curve shift or demand curve shift, okay, that will also if that also leads to an equilibrium, then we have obviously stability. Okay, so this idea of returning is very important in case of a stable equilibrium. That's how we actually check the stability. We'll check that, we'll see that's how we'll do it. So we look at we start from a points of the equilibrium points. So O double F. Okay. So points of equilibrium, outside equilibrium, we start with that. And then we look for the fact, we ask the question whether the market mechanism will return it. Now, obviously, for that, all the kinds of market mechanism will not result into a stable equilibrium. We have very specific market mechanism or market behavior which will lead to a stable equilibrium, and otherwise, when it does not return, we will say it's an unstable equilibrium. So when we say that we are studying stability condition, basically we are saying that we are looking for that market behavior which will lead to a stable equilibrium. Okay, all right. So in that sense, it's very simple. We take points of the equilibrium and we ask a very simple question: is under which market behavior it will return? The answer to that becomes the stability condition. Now, to that extent, we have two choices actually, because we can write the demand or supply curve in two ways. So we can write that the demand curve is d of p equal to some q, or we can write that p equal to d inverse q. So the first one is direct demand curve, second one is inverse demand curve. So we have two choices. And we have two choices like this for the supply curve also. So we have one stability condition which depicts which is written in terms of this, that is direct curves, direct functional form, and another where we have depicted this scenario with this. Okay, so the first one goes to Walrasian, okay, where we talk about demand and supply, and the second one goes to Marshallian, where we talk about demand price and supply price. Okay, all right. So now we'll move on to the details of that. So now we'll talk about what we call as uh, static stability. Okay, and as we said, there is something called a dynamic stability, which is beyond the scope. So in static stability, first we look at what do we mean by static stability analysis. So static stability. So why it is static? You know this, but let's just reiterate it again a little bit. So abstracts it abstracts from the time path. It abstracts from the time path of the adjustment process, and because of this, basically this is not dynamic. So that means in dynamic analysis, which we have later, we'll talk about the adjustment process. Anyways, so and considers and considers only the nature of change. Okay. So a disturbance such as an actual price less than the equilibrium price, creates an adjustment process. Okay, creates or generates an adjustment process, which way you like it. Okay. Now, stability conditions are derived from the market behavior of buyers and sellers. Buyers and sellers. Okay. So for that matter, define E of P equal to D of P minus S of P. And let's just say this is 1. So what is this? This we know, this is excess demand, but in terms of direct demand and supply curve, right? Okay. So the Walrasian stability condition, the Walrasian stability condition is based on the assumption that buyers tend to raise the their willingness to pay if their willingness to pay if excess demand is positive, and sellers tend to lower their prices if it means excess demand. So if it is negative, that means if there is excess supply. Okay, so that's how so the Walrasian stability condition assumes the fact that this is how buyers and sellers behave confronting excess demand or excess supply. Okay, and based on that we have our first result, that is Walrasian stability condition or Walrasian law of stability. And what is this? A market is stable. A market is stable if a price rise reduces excess demand. That is, in mathematical terms, what we are saying is that d E of P dP, this one, which is basically E dash P, which again is equal to D dash P minus S dash P, each of them differentiated in terms of with respect to prices. That is, if this is less than 0, which is our 2. Okay, so that's very simple. And the literature actually remains simple unless we consider a little bit way of the out of the way cases. Okay, so out of the way means positive demand curve or negative supply curve and so on. All right. So if you take a standard diagram, this is pretty easy to understand. So if this is the demand curve and this is the supply curve, Q and 0 and P and Q star and P star, and if we take some P lower bar, then here we have excess demand, right? So here we have excess demand at Q1 and Q2. So Q2 minus Q1 is our excess demand. So if price goes up, so if there is excess demand, the price will move, right? And if the price goes up, as you can see that the gap between these two, it basically reduces and eventually reach the equilibrium. So this is the idea of Walrasian stability. Okay, and this is quite simple if you look at this diagram. All right, so based on that, we'll write some notes. Okay, so understanding this was nothing, and the note is this. So number one, this condition is automatically satisfied, or one can say trivially satisfied. So it is automatically satisfied if D dash P is negative and S dash P is positive. That's easy to see, right? So, and that's the usual scenario of us. So there it holds quite well. Now number two, so if both curves are positively sloped, the supply curve must be flatter than the demand curve, Okay. So if both curves are positively sloped, the supply curve must be flatter than the demand. And that you can see with a very small diagram also. Looking at the condition, we can observe that basically if I want this to be negative, and when these both of them are positive, then the D dash P has to be a lower number than S dash P. Okay. Okay. So when both of them are positively sloped, let's say looking at one curve like this and the other curve is like this, and let's just say that this is my equilibrium and this is my Q star and this is my P star. Now the point is that Walrasian stability says that if there is excess demand, then with price it will reduce, right? Okay, so that means what? That means, let's say if we take, okay, if we take a lower price, let's say this is my lower price, P lower bar, okay, and this gives some Q1 here and some Q2 here. Now, according to this, if I want E to be stable, I want the price to increase, right? Now, if price increases and this equilibrium is stable, then by Walras condition, Q1 minus Q2 is the excess demand, because otherwise it will not satisfy the condition, right? We are taking a different view of all of this. We are saying that let's say E is stable in the Walrasian sense. Now that means if price rises to P star, then excess demand will fall to zero. So that means this positive gap that we are looking This is excess demand, and that makes the steeper one to be the demand curve and the flatter one to be the supply curve, right? Because only in this we have an excess demand here, and that excess demand will be reduced if price increase, and only if price increase it will reach P star. Let us look at the alternative diagram and try to understand it a little better. So for example, if I take the same diagram and if I just rename them, so if this becomes supply and this becomes demand, okay? So this is my Q star, this is my P star, and this is E. Then I have excess demand here, right? At a price higher than the equilibrium price. Now, Walrasian law says that if there is excess demand, then an increase in price will reduce it for a stable equilibrium. Now let us increase the price. So if price increase, then it will go this way. And in that case, the excess demand will increase continuously. And this means that this E that we are looking at is unstable. Okay. Or otherwise, that's the way I said earlier. So that way we can see that this is true. Okay. So obviously we have another scenario where both the curves are negatively sloped. Let us write it here. So number 3. What is 3? 3 is if both are negatively sloped, if both are negatively sloped, the supply curve and it will just be the opposite, right? So the supply curve must be steeper than demand. Okay. So you can draw a similar diagram and just check that this third one is also true. Okay. So now we are going to take a scenario with multiple equilibria and check using this stability condition involving the slopes, which one of them is stable and which one of them is unstable. Because with a single equilibrium, it's sort of easier. Okay. So let's look at that. So now we are taking a multiple equilibria scenario. Okay. So this is our demand curve. And our supply curve is like this. Sorry. Okay. So the first point of intersection that we get here is this one, E. And then you have this point where the demand supply curve just touches the demand curve. And this is C. Here B, and here let's say A. So you have 4 equilibria here, A, B, C, and E. And you're going to check which one of them is stable and which one of them is unstable in terms of Walrasian stability condition. So that's probably the most important point. So in terms of Walrasian stability, condition. So number one, the supply curve is steeper than the demand curve at A, that is at this point. And so from point 3, that we noted that point A is stable. Okay. Number two, so the supply curve is less steep. Supply curve is less steep than demand curve at B, which makes point B is unstable. And then 3, E similar to E similar to A is stable. Now, what about C? C is a very interesting case because what happens at C is if I take a higher price, then here we have excess demand. And if I take a lower price, then also I have excess demand, right? Think what happens around C. So since the supply curve touches the demand curve, we have excess demand on both sides. But, and in both sides, Walrasian stability will say that we are looking for a price rise. Now, if I rise price from the lower end, then eventually it will go at C. But if I rise price from here, then eventually actually it will reach E and not C. So how do I characterize a point like that? So in case of C, what we'll say is that excess demand is positive at both sides of point C. Hence, for less than equilibrium prices, C is stable, but not for more than equilibrium prices. So what do we say then? Hence, point C is semi-stable. Okay. Okay, so now we'll move on to another stability condition, which is the Marshallian stability condition. And which will be stated in terms of demand and supply prices. Okay. So Marshallian stability condition. So here the demand and supply curve, here the demand and supply curves are considered in their inverse form. That is, PD is basically D inverse Q and PS is S inverse Q. Okay, so let's say this is our 3, just to continue with those 1 and 2. And define excess demand price, not excess demand, so excess demand price. So what will that be? So we said E, so let us write F of Q is equal to, so PD minus PS, which is D inverse Q minus S inverse Q. Okay. So the condition, there is the stability condition, or yeah, let us write the stability condition. The stability condition states that the stability condition states that the producers will raise their output when f of q is positive and lower it when symmetrically f of q is negative. That also makes sense, because if the buyers are ready to pay a higher price, why not increase production and sell it? Okay. So that means the equilibrium is stable in Marshallian sense if dfq dq, which is again d of d inverse q minus S inverse q dq, which is basically d inverse dash q minus S inverse dash q is less than 0. Okay. All right. Now, as we said that given our second stability condition, that is in the Marshallian sense, one exercise that is pending is that we must compare it to the Walrasian sense, and you see that whether these conditions are similar or they are quite different or not. Okay. So to that extent, we have a little bit awkward result in the sense that, so note 1, so if the demand curve is negatively sloped, if the demand curve is negatively sloped, and the supply curve is positively sloped, and the supply curve is positively sloped, and equilibrium becomes stable under both definitions. Okay, so this is the good part. The bad part is note 2. If the demand and supply curves, if the demand and supply curves are of the same sign, that is, if they are both positively sloped or both negatively sloped, so of the same sign, the same equilibrium will be stable according to one definition, not definition actually, one condition rather. So it will be stable according to one condition and unstable according to the other. Okay. So that really creates a problem. And that is also basically kind of easy to see, because if one of them is demand is negatively sloped and supply curve is positively sloped, then if I take the inverse and take the slope of them, then that doesn't really change the sign of them. So it's fine, right? Negative will remain negative and positive will remain positive. So end of the day, the result will be negative. So that is how under both definitions, it's fine. But what if both of them have the same slope. So you have a very small kind of derivation which can make us realize this fact. So it's very simple. So if at all you can say this is a derivation. I'm keeping this because this is the condition, right? Anyway, so we write d of p is equal to q. Okay, now to bring in the Marshallian idea also, let us write d of pd is equal to q. Okay, so that means we have d dash pd dpd equal to dq, which means d dash pd is equal to dq dpd. Okay, now if we start with, so for pd equal to d inverse q, so we are starting from the same equation but taking inverse, then what happens is dpd will become d inverse dash of q dq, which basically tells me that d inverse dash q is essentially dpd dq. So what does it mean? It means dpd dq is essentially 1 by d inverse pd, right? And this is the relationship which creates all the problems, because this is not only true for demand curve. So we can write similarly S inverse dash q is equal to 1 by S dash ps, right? So at equilibrium, pd equal to ps equal to p. So you can write like this. So following Walrasian stability condition, what do you know? We know that d of ep dp is less than 0, which tells us that d dash, sorry, d dash p minus s dash p, this is less than 0. Now from these two, let's say this is some, I don't know, okay, let's put it something Roman, so Roman 1. Okay, so from this we can say that from Roman 1, what do we have here? 1 by d inverse dash p, right? Yeah. No, sorry, this will be q, right? Yeah, sorry, this will be q. D inverse dash q, this one, minus, so 1 by S inverse dash q is less than 0. And that tells me that S inverse dash q minus D inverse dash q less than 0. But this is directly against this, right? So this one and this one, they do not match. So that means we have our last line. But this means that the equilibrium is unstable in the Marshallian sense. In the Marshallian sense. Okay. All right. So this is how we do it. But remember, the both definitions become identical when they have a sign difference. Okay, so that's normal. That if both they have a sign difference, then both definitions will imply the same thing. But when they do not have that, then we have a problem. And why is that? Because a sign difference will change the inequality, right? So, for example, when you did this system will change if I say that supply, this one comes with a positive sign, but this one comes with a negative sign, then the scenario will change. So this is how, if we assume firsthand that the slopes are of the same sign, then deriving, starting from the Waller's stability condition, we can say that it means it's unstable in the Marshallian sense. And for clarity, we just write when both d dash p and s dash p are of same sign. Okay.